Hello, and welcome to the Bedtime Sleep. Here, the night is never empty. It's filled with stories the stars want to tell you. If you're new, take a deep breath, settle into the dark, and don't forget to subscribe for a new journey every night. And if a question stirs in your mind by the end, let it drift into the comments. I'd love to hear where your thoughts wander. Now, close your eyes and come float with me. There is a stillness above you tonight, vast, velvet, unbroken. You lie on your back, breathing slow and steady, while the sky opens like a deep blue book. There are no pages here, only stars, each one blinking softly in the dark, scattered like tiny notes in an endless lullaby. You wonder how far they are. You wonder how old. And then you wonder about the space between them. Because that's what you mostly see, isn't it? Not the stars themselves, but the quiet between them. That quiet stretches wider than anything you've ever known. If you were to fly, straight and fast and endlessly, you'd pass through those spaces for years, even lifetimes, and still find yourself inside that hush. No sounds, no walls. Just the deep breath of the universe. And yet, it doesn't feel truly empty. It feels like something is holding it, like the silence is suspended on invisible strings. You look again at the night, and now it's not a blank canvas. It's a cradle, a soft structure so big you can't see its shape, but you can feel it gently rocking all things inside it. Galaxies, planets, moons, and you. The space between stars isn't still. It expands, quietly, constantly, without wind, without friction, without sound. The distance grows like the slow bloom of a flower in shadow. This is not just motion. It's something deeper, something built into the fabric of existence. And if you listen closely, not with ears but with wonder, you can almost hear it happening, the universe unfolding one silent inch at a time. Long ago, people thought the stars were fixed, that the heavens never moved. But now we know, everything is drifting. The galaxies are not just moving through space. Space itself is stretching beneath them. Imagine a sheet of soft cloth, endless, weightless, floating in the dark. Now sprinkle a handful of glitter on that cloth. Those are galaxies. Now gently pull the corners of the cloth. The glitter doesn't move on its own. The space it sits on is growing, and the glitter drifts with it. That is what our universe is doing. That's what the quiet between stars truly is. Not stillness, but movement too large and soft to feel. You lie there, eyes closed, and float in this idea. Your breath slows to match it. And for a moment, you feel as if your body is part of the fabric too, gently drawn outward, not in chaos, but in calm surrender. It's strange, isn't it? That the most silent parts of space are the most active. That what feels like emptiness is full of motion. That nothingness might not be nothing at all. Scientists call it expansion. But expansion of what? Of space. Of the very stage on which all things play. And what causes this expansion? Here, the mystery deepens. Because something unseen, unknown, and softly powerful is doing the pushing. It doesn't roar or rage. It doesn't glow or burn. It simply stretches the dark. They call it dark energy. But for now, it's just a name. A placeholder for what we do not yet understand. You feel it now, not as a threat, but as a question without urgency, a whisper that moves galaxies apart while you sleep beneath their light. The night continues, and your thoughts drift further. You picture two distant galaxies, tiny, speckled islands in the sea of the cosmos. They are not moving because of gravity, or spinning because of stars. They are being pulled apart because the space between them is growing, not pushed by something inside them, but by something beneath everything. This force, dark energy, doesn't come from the galaxies. It comes from the nothing between them. A paradox, you think. An invisible energy hidden inside emptiness. The most powerful thing in the universe, hiding in what we thought was silence. And it's not a loud power, not a sudden storm. It's a constant, quiet breath, a slow exhale of space that never stops. As you listen to this cosmic rhythm, your body relaxes. You no longer fight the pull of gravity beneath your blanket. You imagine yourself as part of it, part of this great stretching, part of this gentle unfolding of all things. There is no edge to space, no wall, no ceiling, only this soft, unhurried expansion, where every point moves away from every other point. No center, just distance, growing, always. And in this expansion, you feel a strange comfort. Because even though galaxies drift apart, even though the universe grows colder and quieter, it does so gently, lovingly almost. Dark energy isn't a threat. It's a lullaby written into the bones of space. You don't have to understand it fully. Even scientists don't. It remains a riddle, a beautiful, steady, mysterious presence. But you can feel it now, not in your fingertips or your ears, but in the sense that everything is connected by something larger than we can see. You are part of that fabric. So is your breath. So is the bed beneath you. So is the thought you just had, floating now among stars. This is an emptiness. This is potential. And somewhere inside this deep, expanding quiet is a force. You feel it not as fear, but as wonder. And wonder is the softest kind of light. Tonight, as your thoughts begin to settle and your eyes grow heavier, you let yourself be held by the quiet between stars. You let the silence cradle you. You trust that even the spaces between are full of meaning, full of presence, full of purpose. You drift, just like the galaxies, gently, endlessly, into rest. But still, in the hush, a question lingers. If the space between stars isn't empty, then what exactly is doing the expanding? What is this invisible breath that moves everything apart? And what does it really mean? To have energy inside of nothing at all. You are still floating. Last night, you rested in the quiet between stars. Not an emptiness, but a pause, a breath, a presence. Tonight, that presence returns. But now, it begins to move. You open your eyes slowly, not to a room, but to the cosmos again. The stars are where you left them. But now they seem to shimmer with distance, like lanterns drifting slowly away across a silent lake. There is no wind, no sound of paddles or currents. And yet, everything is moving. It isn't a rush. It's a float. The universe is floating. Galaxies slip away from one another like dandelion seeds rising through still air. Their motion is calm and quiet, so slow you wouldn't notice it unless you waited millions of years. But the movement is real, and it is everywhere. You might think they are sailing on momentum, coasting from some long-forgotten explosion. But it's more mysterious than that. They're not in motion. The space between them is what grows. Imagine a balloon, not the kind that flies, but one that grows slowly under warm hands. Dots drawn on its surface, little galaxies, move farther apart as the rubber stretches. The dots don't move on their own. The space beneath them grows. This is how your universe expands. Not like a crowd spreading in a field, but like the field itself swelling underfoot. Every galaxy is moving away from every other, not because they're running, but because the very threads of reality are lengthening. And you, lying here beneath your blanket, are part of that same fabric. You might not feel it. You might never see it. But you're stretching too. Space stretches within the atoms in your pillow, between the thoughts in your mind. Everywhere, always, gently expanding. And the galaxies? They drift, not because they want to, but because they are carried by something underneath it all, something unseen, something that flows without a source, like the tide beneath a ship that doesn't know it floats. That something is what scientists call dark energy. But the name is only a shadow, a placeholder, a guess dressed in silence. Still, it behaves in ways we can feel. We know the galaxies are moving apart, and we know the rate at which they move is speeding up, not slowing, as gravity would demand, not stopping, as one might expect after billions of years. No, it accelerates. That is what dark energy does. It pushes the universe outward, softly, insistently, and always. You picture two galaxies, billions of light years apart. They do not tug on each other. They do not speak. But the distance between them grows larger, faster, every moment. It is as if the universe is making more room. Not because it must, but because something is gently urging it to unfold. There is no sound to this motion, no tremor, only the mathematics of space itself revealing a quiet truth, that the farther apart things are, the faster they are pushed away. This alone tells you something beautiful. It tells you that motion does not require noise, that energy does not always roar, that the deepest transformations are the ones we cannot feel. You think again of that balloon, gently inflating. You imagine galaxies as pinpricks of light on its surface. You realize something odd. From every point on the balloon, it seems like everything else is moving away. There is no center, no edge, no single direction in which the universe expands. It expands everywhere, all at once, from within itself. And that means you, no matter where you are not outside this story. You are in the middle of the expansion, just like every other point. Your breath, your heartbeat, your presence, they all float in this expansion. Not metaphorically, but truly. Even here, in the softness of your bed, your molecules drift through a universe that widens gently with every passing second. Is it unsettling? Not tonight. Tonight, it feels natural, like a leaf carried by a river current it cannot see. Not lost, not drifting without meaning, just held. You let that image hold you. A leaf in a stream, not moving by effort, just floating with the quiet rhythm of something much older, much wider than yourself. You think, if the universe is expanding, does that mean it was smaller before? And yes, it does. There was a time, long, long ago, when everything was closer together. Galaxies hugged close, stars flickered nearby, and the fabric of space was tightly woven. But not anymore. Now things float. The stars are farther. The sky is quieter. The night is deeper. And still, the force persists. Dark energy has not vanished. It has not weakened. It has only become more important. Because the more space there is, the more dark energy there is too. It does not thin out like dust. It does not weaken as it spreads. It fills the universe evenly, no matter how large that universe becomes. This is one of its strangest traits. Ordinary things, like light or gravity or matter, fade as they stretch. They become more distant, more dilute. But dark energy? It stays the same, everywhere, always. It's as if space itself creates it. A quiet echo built into every empty corner of the cosmos. And so, the more space grows, the more dark energy there is. And the more dark energy there is, the faster space grows. It is a loop, a rhythm, a kind of cosmic breath that deepens with each inhale. You imagine this now, not as a danger, not as a flaw, but as a pulse, a heartbeat beneath existence. Slow, gentle, unstoppable. You are floating on that pulse. So is every star, every cloud of gas, every silent planet. So is every memory, every hope, every sleeping dream. All of it. Floating. What does it mean for things to float apart forever? What does it mean to live in a universe with no walls, no ceiling, no end? What does it mean that every second, the space around you becomes something new? Not because of time, but because of what time carries with it. You don't need all the answers now. You only need to feel the presence of the question, to let it cradle you like warm water. And so you do. The galaxies drift farther. The night deepens. Your breath slows again, and the stars blur gently in your mind. There is no hurry, only drift, only rest. And just before sleep takes hold completely, you wonder one last thing. If this mysterious force, dark energy, pushes all things apart, where is it coming from? Not from stars, not from gravity, not from matter or light. No, it comes from nothing. It comes from the quiet, from the empty, from the spaces between. But how can nothing have energy? How can emptiness push? You are floating still. Your body rests here soft, still, and slow. But your mind continues its journey outward, deeper into the vastness. The galaxies that drifted apart last night now feel farther away, not because they're running, but because something unseen is gently growing the space between. You remember that image from before. Two galaxies drifting like lanterns on a lake, carried not by wind, not by effort, but by something quiet and constant. And now you drift with them, not through space, but inside it. The stars, the planets, the atoms, the breath between your ribs. Everything floats in something. Not air, not ether, but in the very geometry of the universe. And that geometry is changing, growing, stretching, softly. You wonder again, what is pushing? It's not gravity. Gravity pulls things together. It's not light. Light travels, but it doesn't stretch space. It's not the stars. They shine, they burn, but they do not expand the cosmos. So what is it? What is this invisible hand beneath everything? Dark energy. That's the name. But names are only shadows, and this one is dimmer than most. Dark energy is not dark like night. It's not made of particles like matter. It does not shine. It does not weigh. It does not clump or drift or swirl. It simply exists. Everywhere. All at once. And you feel it now, not as a force on your skin, but as a quiet rhythm beneath the dream of the universe. It is not a thing you can hold. It's more like a pressure, a background hum, a stretch sewn into the fabric of space itself. Imagine lying on a bed so soft you cannot tell where it begins or ends. Now imagine that bed growing beneath you, slowly, evenly, gently, without any seams, without any sound. You don't feel the pull. You don't see the change. But when you look around, everything is just a little farther than it was before. That is how dark energy behaves. It doesn't shove. It doesn't ripple. It doesn't leave behind a trail. It stretches the invisible. It fills the void, not with light or mass, but with expansion. You pause here, letting this idea settle. That the space between all things, between stars, between thoughts, contains not silence, but presence. You think of a balloon again. You think of the surface stretching. And then you think of something even stranger. What if space isn't just being stretched from the outside, but wants to stretch from within? What if this dark energy isn't pushing things apart, But is simply space doing what space naturally does? Expanding, like a breath that never ends. Scientists don't know for sure. They measure, they map, they wonder. They see the way galaxies move and say, something must be causing this. But that something cannot be found in stars, or atoms, or radiation. It's invisible, it's weightless, it's everywhere, and it makes up most of the universe. More than matter, more than light, more than everything we see. Imagine walking into a cathedral so enormous you cannot see the ceiling. Now imagine you've always believed the stone pillars held up the sky. But then you discover the true weight of the cathedral rests on air, on something you cannot touch or hold. This is what dark energy is. It is the cathedral's hidden strength. It is the unseen scaffolding of expansion. It does not announce itself, but it shapes the cosmos all the same. And that is what you are lying inside of now. Not just a bed, not just a room, but a living, growing universe filled with an invisible force that never rests. This energy doesn't change with time. It doesn't flicker or fade. It is constant, a steady hum beneath the stars, a pressure that increases as space grows. Because there is more and more space for it to live in. That is the paradox. More space means more dark energy. More dark energy means faster expansion. Faster expansion means even more space. A cycle that never slows. A drift that never ends. And you, in the middle of it, are part of that quiet journey. You are not being torn apart. You are not floating away. You are simply being carried by the calmest force imaginable. The energy no one sees is the one that touches everything. Even you. Even now. And you begin to realize something beautiful. That science does not always roar. It does not always flash or break or spark. Sometimes, science just is. A soft truth, whispered across space. A mystery that holds its breath. A presence that reveals itself only when you are still enough to feel it. Tonight, you are still, and you feel it. This unseen energy does not need to be understood all at once. It is enough to know it is there. Enough to know it holds the galaxies in a slow, steady drift. Enough to know it hums behind every atom in your body. It does not wait for you to see it. It just is. The stars continue their quiet separation. The space between them grows. And inside that space is something real, something powerful. Something we cannot see. You lie there, listening for it. Not with ears, but with awareness. And somewhere in that listening, you begin to sense something deeper still. Dark energy exists. But why? Why does space contain this pressure? Why does emptiness carry a force? And if it does, could it come from within the vacuum itself? Could the energy no one sees actually live inside the very silence we thought was empty? You lie quietly in your bed, but your thoughts drift deeper than sleep. Last night, you felt the invisible rhythm of something pushing space apart. Dark energy, subtle and ever-present, guiding galaxies outward like boats on a widening tide. But tonight, you follow that force back to its source. And you arrive at a curious place, the vacuum. Emptiness. Nothingness. A word that sounds hollow. But what if it's not? You close your eyes and imagine a space with no stars, no planets, no atoms, no light. Not even air. Just nothing. But when you listen more closely, something strange stirs. The silence isn't still. It isn't flat. It trembles like the surface of a pond catching the ripple of a breeze you can't see. You are floating now in that pond, suspended in a vacuum. And what you expected to be still is alive with soft motion. This isn't science fiction. It's quantum reality. Even in the most perfect vacuum, where everything should be gone, something remains. Tiny flickers, brief whispers, a pulse. Physicists call them virtual particles. Not real in the way you and I are real, but momentary flashes, like sparks in the dark that come and go so quickly they leave no mark. These particles pop into existence, pair up, and vanish again, all within the smallest slices of time imaginable. They borrow energy from the vacuum itself, just enough to exist for a breath, and then return it before the universe notices. It is allowed. In fact, it happens everywhere, all the time, even here, even now, even in the space between your thoughts. And you begin to understand something that feels impossible, that the vacuum is not empty. It hums, not like a machine, not like a voice, but like a quiet ocean of possibility, where every moment particles shimmer into being and dissolve, as if the universe is dreaming itself, one flicker at a time. You imagine this now. The stillness beneath your bed is not still. The space around you, inside you, is not hollow. It is busy with invisible flickers, with the breath of creation, with the smallest dance imaginable. This is the quantum vacuum, the stage upon which all matter, all light, all energy rests. And though we call it nothing, it is filled with potential. And maybe, just maybe, this is where dark energy lives, not as a thing, but as a pressure born from those endless flickers. You float there with that thought. You drift through the vacuum and feel it, not as touch, but as rhythm, a pulse, a cosmic heartbeat. What causes the universe to expand? Perhaps it's not being pushed by something external. Perhaps it's the natural result of space, being unable to stay quiet. Space itself, even when stripped bare, refuses to be still. It trembles. It bubbles. It breathes. The more closely scientists look, the more they see that the vacuum holds energy, a baseline hum, a quiet floor beneath everything else. They call it the vacuum energy, and it is everywhere. If you had a box with nothing in it, no particles, no air, no heat, there would still be something inside. A small pressure, born from these tiny virtual sparks. And though they vanish almost instantly, their combined effect is real, like the sound of thousands of butterfly wings in the distance. Quiet alone, but overwhelming together. You let that image carry you. A world where absence is never truly empty, where even silence has texture. You imagine lying on a field at night, but the ground beneath you pulses, not from footsteps, but from the heartbeat of something you cannot name. The vacuum is not dead. It is dynamic, a storm in stillness, a murmur beneath matter. And if the universe has been expanding faster and faster, could this sea of flickering energy be the cause? It seems possible. Some scientists believe the vacuum energy is exactly what drives dark energy, that the pulse of nothing becomes the force that pushes everything apart. It is a paradox so gentle it feels like poetry, that the most powerful energy in the cosmos might come from the quietest place imaginable. And yet, there is something strange. When scientists calculate how much energy the vacuum should contain, their math gives an answer that is staggeringly wrong, not just off by a little, off by a lot, by more zeros than you can count before falling asleep. This is one of the greatest mysteries in physics. Why is the vacuum's energy so small? Why doesn't it rip the universe apart instantly? Why is the force that holds our cosmos so gentle, when the equations say it should be ferocious? It's as if the vacuum has learned to whisper when it could have shouted. And so, we live in a universe balanced on this whisper. A tension between theory and reality, between math and mystery. And you rest on that whisper now. You rest on that vacuum. You close your eyes, and beneath your thoughts, beneath your dreams, beneath your breath, is this pulse, always flickering, never stopping, A secret sea, humming beneath everything you've ever known. You don't need to see it. You don't need to measure it. You just need to feel the wonder of it. That even nothingness contains movement. That even silence has a voice. You drift through it, gently now. No need for certainty. No need for answers. Just presence. The vacuum pulses. The particles flicker. Space stretches. And the stars continue to float. And as you fall towards sleep, one last thought follows you like a feather. If even nothingness holds energy, how precise must that energy be? For a universe like this to bloom, the night is quiet again. You rest beneath a soft ceiling of stars, your breath steady, your thoughts slow. And still, something from the last chapter lingers in your mind. A whisper floating just beyond reach. Not the flickering of virtual particles, not the quiet hum of vacuum energy, but a puzzle, a mathematical breath that should roar, but barely sighs. And that's where your journey drifts tonight, into numbers that don't quite fit. You remember, scientists calculated the energy of the vacuum, that invisible sea beneath all things. And their numbers were astonishing, not because the answer was big, but because it was too big. So big, in fact, that if the math were right, the universe would have torn itself apart long ago. The galaxies wouldn't drift apart like lanterns on a lake. They would have exploded outward in a wild, chaotic storm. A cosmos too fierce to form stars, too fast to hold matter together. But that didn't happen. Here you are, alive, breathing, listening to the hush of expansion, not the scream of collapse. Which means the numbers, somehow, must be wrong. Or something more delicate is at play. The calculations of quantum physics and the observed reality of the cosmos do not agree. And the difference isn't small. It's not a rounding error or a missed decimal. It's one of the biggest mismatches in all of science. A gap of 120 orders of magnitude. That's a 1 followed by 120 zeros. The difference between what theory predicts and what the universe gently reveals. And so, you lie back in your thoughts and let this paradox cradle you like a quiet riddle. How can nature be so gentle when the math suggests it should be violent? Perhaps you think the math is wrong, but the math has worked everywhere else. It builds bridges. It sends rockets into orbit. It predicts the behavior of atoms and light. So if it fails here, it fails in a very special way. That makes the failure itself a kind of clue, a soft fingerprint on the surface of reality. It's as if the universe is whispering, yes, you understand a lot, but not everything. And you find comfort in that, in the idea that mystery still lives among the numbers. Some physicists call this puzzle the worst prediction in physics. Others call it a signpost, pointing the way to a deeper truth. But no one knows for sure. You imagine a balance beam, suspended in still air. On one end, the wild, flickering energy of the vacuum. On the other, something else, some unknown force, perfectly tuned to cancel it. The balance must be exquisite, so perfect that the violent storm of quantum energy is muffled down to the soft, steady drift of the galaxies. It's like watching a hurricane, then seeing only a feather fall. That's how delicate this number must be. And yet there it is. Dark energy, small, constant quiet. Some wonder if this balance is just luck. If we live in one version of many possible universes, and we just happen to land in the one, where the numbers work well enough for stars to form, for planets to orbit, for life to think and dream and wonder. Others believe the balance isn't luck at all, but law, a deeper principle we have yet to find, a rule buried beneath the equations. That makes dark energy gentle by design. You consider this now, floating between chance and reason. Maybe the universe isn't balanced by accident. Maybe it needs to be this way. Maybe expansion is not just a side effect of physics, but a part of its foundation. Or maybe, just maybe, our assumptions are flawed. Perhaps dark energy isn't real in the way we think. Perhaps it's not a force at all, but a shadow, a symptom, the echo of something else, something we haven't named yet. You drift further into that thought. Imagine a clock that keeps perfect time, but whose inner gears you've never seen. You measure the ticking, you trust the rhythm, but the mechanism remains hidden. That is what the universe feels like now. A perfect ticking, a balance that holds galaxies in slow separation. And behind that rhythm, numbers that won't sit still, predictions that crumble under their own weight. But the ticking continues. The expansion continues. And so, you let the paradox rock you gently. Not all questions demand answers. Not all mysteries are meant to be solved tonight. Some are meant to be held. Softly, like a feather, like a flame. Dark energy may be tiny, but it fills the universe. It may be quiet, but it holds everything together by pushing it apart. And its strength lies not in what it does, but in how precisely it does it. You think of the early universe, small, dense, newborn. If dark energy had been even a little stronger, that universe would have ripped apart too fast for stars to form. If it had been weaker, gravity would have pulled everything back, a universe collapsing before it could open its eyes. But here we are. The value of dark energy seems almost designed, not by a hand, but by a coincidence so rare. It makes you pause, and in that pause, you wonder, what if this mistake in the numbers is not a mistake at all? What if it's a clue, not to error, but to structure, not to failure, but to finesse? A gap so large, it must be telling us something real, but we're not ready to hear it yet. And that's okay. You turn gently on your side. The stars beyond your window seem softer now, more distant, more precise. They drift not by accident, but by design, or maybe by mystery, and both feel beautiful. Your breath falls into rhythm with that mystery. Dark energy hums through the vacuum, perfectly quiet, perfectly tuned, a presence born from nothing, yet essential to everything. And as your eyes grow heavy, your last thought is not of numbers, but of balance, of how the tiniest, quietest force could carry the weight of a universe and leave us just enough space to wonder why. Tonight, the numbers follow you. They drift like echoes through your dreams, soft, persistent, almost spectral. And at the center of them all, there is a single symbol, quiet and strange. It's called lambda, the Greek letter lambda, but you might know it by a different name. The cosmological constant. And like a ghost, it haunts the heart of the universe. You lie there, gently wrapped in silence, and let this strange story unfold. Over a century ago, before galaxies were seen drifting apart, before dark energy had a name, a man sat with a puzzle in his mind. His name was Albert Einstein, and he had just written the equations that would change how we understand space itself. They were beautiful, complex, alive. They told him something revolutionary. That space is not a stage, but a player. It curves, it bends, it dances in response to matter and energy. And that dance is what we feel as gravity. But there was a problem. Einstein believed the universe was eternal and still, unchanging, fixed. But his equations didn't agree. They suggested something shocking. That space should not stay still, that it wanted to move, to contract or to expand. Einstein didn't like that. So he added something, a small term, a patch, lambda, the cosmological constant, a symbol stitched into the math, meant to hold the universe steady, to stop the expansion, to tame the wildness of his own theory. It was gentle, quiet, an outward pressure, just enough to counter gravity. Not too much, not too little. A cosmic balance beam. With lambda in place, the universe could be still, silent, balanced. But then, a few years later, astronomers peered into the night sky, and what they saw made lambda tremble. Galaxies weren't standing still. They were moving away, drifting apart like blossoms on a pond. The universe was expanding. Einstein's patch was no longer needed. And so, with a kind of elegant regret, he erased lambda from his equations. He called it his greatest blunder, a mathematical ghost, an echo of something the universe didn't require. Or so he thought. You let that thought linger in your mind like smoke, because the story doesn't end there. Decades later, physicists noticed something strange. The expansion of the universe wasn't just continuing. It was speeding up. Faster and faster, galaxies were stretching away, not from momentum, but from a force no one could see, a force that pushed space apart, a force that sounded familiar. And so, lambda returned, not as a mistake, but as a clue, what Einstein tried to erase. The cosmos brought back, not for balance, but for acceleration. The cosmological constant, quiet, stubborn, mysterious, had never left at all. It was not a ghost. It was a presence, something deep inside the fabric of space. You rest now, sensing that fabric stretch beneath you, not like a thread pulled tight, but like a breath drawn slow and endless. The lambda term is simple in form, just a number, but its meaning is vast. It describes the energy of empty space, not matter, not light, but the vacuum itself. It whispers that space can contain energy, even when nothing else is there, and that energy pushes, not against walls, not against objects, but against distance itself. Tonight, you feel it, not as force, but as a presence, something soft, mathematical, woven into the equations of reality. Lambda isn't loud. It doesn't roar like gravity. It doesn't shine like stars. But it shapes everything. It stretches galaxies apart. It defines the future of the universe. And it might be, as Einstein first imagined, the quietest possible form of balance. You wonder, was Einstein wrong when he called it a blunder? Or was he right, just too soon? Maybe the constant he added wasn't a mistake, but a foreshadowing, a glimpse of dark energy before its name was born. You imagine Einstein's hand writing those equations, tweaking symbols on the page, not knowing the universe would one day grow into them. And you realize something beautiful, that math can be prophetic, that symbols can see farther than we do. Lambda is not just a number. It is a bridge between past and future, between mistake and truth, between human thought and cosmic behavior. You float on that bridge now. Some scientists say lambda is truly constant, a fixed value baked into space. Others believe it may change over time, a whisper that grows or fades as the universe unfolds. We don't know yet, but its presence shapes the way the cosmos breathes. If lambda is large, the universe flies apart. If lambda is small, it drifts gently. And if lambda were negative, space would curl back in on itself. You lie still, wondering what lambda is. A fundamental constant? A remnant of the early universe? A sign of something deeper, something not yet discovered? You don't have to answer. It's enough to feel it. A single symbol, tucked into Einstein's field equations. now pulsing quietly through every corner of existence. The ghost of the cosmological constant isn't gone. It's everywhere, in the galaxies, in the silence, in the steady stretch of night. And as you drift towards sleep, you understand something more, that even in the most brilliant minds, what looks like a blunder may become a beacon. Tonight, your breath is slower than usual, not because of sleep, but because your thoughts drift farther than they ever have. You are no longer lying in the present. You are floating forward, into a time not yet born, into a future carved by the quiet hands of dark energy. You imagine a universe so old, it barely remembers what stars used to look like. A time when galaxies, now rushing away from each other, have become invisible, not because they disappeared, but because they are too far, too faint, too fast. You've heard the phrase speed of light. But what if space itself is stretching faster than light can cross it? That's what dark energy might do. It doesn't move objects through space. It grows the space between them. And if that growth never stops, if it keeps accelerating, then everything, eventually, becomes unreachable. Imagine lighting a candle on a boat and pushing it away across a lake. At first, you can see it. Then it's a dot. Then it's gone, not because the candle went out, but because the lake keeps growing faster than the flame can cross it. That is the fate of distant galaxies. They do not vanish. They slip beyond reach. Their light can no longer find us. Their gravity no longer touches us. It is not a catastrophe. It is a quiet goodbye. You picture the night sky, ages from now. Empty. Still. Quiet. The stars we see today, they will have faded from sight. The galaxies we chart with telescopes, their light will no longer reach our shores. We will be alone, not in the sense of solitude, but in the sense of separation, a cosmic isolation, carried gently by the very thing that built the void. Dark energy. You drift deeper into time, to a moment when expansion becomes the story itself. The galaxies, long gone. The stars, burned out. Even black holes, once eternal, have begun to evaporate. What's left? Just space, and a force that keeps growing it. Some scientists call this fate the Big Freeze, a future where the universe becomes colder, emptier, and more diffuse, until there is nothing left to change. But there's another idea, one more dramatic, more fragile. It's called the Big Rip, and you feel it now, not as fear, but as a distant possibility. What if dark energy doesn't stay constant? What if it grows stronger? What if the same force that stretches galaxies apart begins to stretch everything, smaller and smaller, closer and closer? Galaxies are pulled apart, then solar systems, then planets from stars, then molecules from each other, then atoms from their electrons. What if space stretches so fast, even the forces holding matter together can no longer keep up? You imagine it now, not in terror, but with a strange softness, a universe unraveling itself, not in fire, not in collapse, but in a kind of surrender. Every bond loosened, every particle set free, everything returning, not to dust, but to distance. You pause here, not to escape the thought, but to feel its weight. Could the universe end, not with a bang, but with a breath? A final exhale, where everything comes apart. At the seams, the Big Rip is not certain. It depends on what dark energy truly is, on whether it grows stronger with time, or simply holds steady. Right now, it whispers. But what if one day it sings? No one knows. But you let the question hold you gently, because even if the end is stillness, or cold, or distance, even then, this expansion is not violent. It's graceful, Space isn't tearing itself apart like cloth. It's stretching like music. Each note farther from the last. Each pause longer. Each breath deeper. And if it stretches forever, then everything we know will eventually drift away. The galaxies, the stars, even the memory of warmth. But right now, you are here, on a warm planet, under a night sky, with stars still shining. And space, though it grows, has not pulled you apart. Not yet. Not for a very, very long time. So you breathe in, and you exhale, and you let the idea settle that even the strongest forces in nature can be soft, that the end of the universe might arrive not with noise, but with silence, not with destruction, but with release. And in that release, there is peace, there is room, and maybe there is something after. Because if everything comes apart, perhaps something new can be woven from the pieces. Or perhaps this long expansion is not the end of something, but the beginning of something we do not yet understand. As your thoughts slow, you return to the present, to your own small breath, to the warmth of your bed, to the stars still overhead. And in this moment, space is still holding you. Gently, firmly, quietly. The stretch has not reached you. The rip is still far away. And tonight, you are safe inside a universe, still unfolding itself, not in haste, not in fear, but in rhythm. And as you drift closer to sleep, you carry a final thought. If the universe can let go of everything, what are you holding on to? Tonight, your journey folds inward. You have wandered through expanding galaxies, floated in the vacuum's quiet hum, and followed dark energy into the distant future. But now you turn around. You drift backward, not just in time, but in meaning, back toward a moment so silent it didn't even know how to whisper. A moment before moments, before up and down, before stars, before space had a shape, or time had a pace. You are returning to almost nothing. You hear that phrase often, the beginning of the universe. But what does it mean? What was there before? Was there space? Was there time? Was there silence? You let these questions fill you, not like a flood, but like a mist. Soft, uncertain, open. The beginning wasn't a bang. Not in the way bangs usually sound. There was no air to carry noise. No ears to listen. No light either. Not yet. Just potential. Imagine a blank page. But not even a page. Imagine the idea of a page, curled tight in stillness. And then something changes. A flicker. A moment of asymmetry. A breath that folds itself outward. The universe begins. It begins small, not just in size, but in being, in definition. There is no edge, no center, no direction, only unfolding. You are there now, watching from beyond time. You don't need eyes. You don't need form. You are presence, witnessing the first bloom of what would one day be called everything. From what? That's the question. Physicists call it a singularity, a point where density is infinite, where the laws we know fall apart. But that word, singularity, is just a placeholder, a sign that says, here, we do not yet understand. So we imagine a quantum fluctuation, a small tremble in nothing that gives rise to space, to time, to energy. We imagine the vacuum, not as absence, but as possibility. A sea so still that even the tiniest ripple can build a cosmos. Maybe the universe didn't explode outward. Maybe it inflated, gently, rapidly. A single point of potential, stretching like fabric warmed by thought. This is what some call cosmic inflation, an era so brief and so powerful. It took what was nearly nothing and made everything. In trillionths of a second, The universe expanded faster than light, smoothing itself, cooling just enough to make stars possible, atoms possible, you possible. You float now in that expanding fog. The heat is unimaginable, but it does not burn you. You are just a witness, just a whisper. Quarks dance, photons scatter. Energy begins to take on shape. From this blooming heat, matter condenses like dew. Particles find partners. Forces find form. Gravity becomes gravity. Light becomes light. And the universe begins to know itself. Not as idea, but as motion. All from a tremble. All from almost nothing. You let that sink in. You, lying here in a quiet room, breathing, wondering, are made of particles that once spun in the first breath of time. Your atoms were born, not from stars, but from what came before them. You are made of ancient heat, of silence that became song. And you ask softly, what is nothing, if it can give birth to this? To galaxies, to oceans, to thought. Maybe nothing is never truly empty. Maybe what we call nothing is the most patient form of everything. Waiting, always waiting, for the right ripple, the right breath. You drift in that breath now. You are not separate from the beginning. You are the beginning, still unfolding, still cooling, still wondering. And you feel comfort in this, that the cosmos began not with violence, but with emergence, that from simplicity came pattern, from stillness, rhythm, from nothing, something, maybe even meaning, not imposed from outside, but grown from the inside out, like a seed that didn't know it was a tree, until it began to stretch. And now, you stretch with it, still part of that first expansion, still a note in that first chord. The universe continues to unfold, and so do you. You don't need to understand every number. You don't need to solve the origin. It's enough to feel awe, to rest in the mystery, to know you came from it, and return to it. Each time you close your eyes, from almost nothing, comes this quiet moment, this breath, this thought. And as you drift closer to sleep, you feel the question forming again, soft, inviting. If something can come from almost nothing, what else is waiting? Just beyond stillness? You've reached the end of a journey that never truly ends. Eyes closed, breath soft, your mind drifts over galaxies. Vacuum flickers, cosmic numbers. A force that pushes stars apart like petals in a windless garden. You began in the quiet between stars, where space hummed not with sound, but with expansion. You followed dark energy into the vacuum, watched it ripple through equations and dreams, soft as mist, deep as night. And now, you float in the memory of a beginning. That wasn't fire and noise, but a flicker, a fold, a breath from almost nothing. A pause becomes a universe. A tremble becomes time. You rest in that thought now. Dark energy, so quiet, so strange, has pulled you gently through everything. Through Einstein's doubts, through the vacuum's pulse, through galaxies slipping into distance, through the possibility of a future where even atoms loosen their grip. You followed the numbers that didn't add up. You felt the presence of a constant that might not be constant. You heard the soft echo of a mistake that may never have been a mistake at all. And in the end, you returned to where it all began, to almost nothing, to the moment when space decided to be. Maybe that's the truth behind dark energy. Not a thing, not a substance, but a whisper written into the rules. A reminder that even in silence, motion can begin. Even in emptiness, meaning can rise. Even in nothing, you can bloom. So now, as you lie still, let the weight of the cosmos fall away. Let expansion go quiet in your thoughts. Let time unfold without urgency. Because tonight, and every night, You are still part of that first flicker, still unfolding, still becoming. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe, pausing for breath. Between questions, you are a soft moment, inside an ancient wave, carried forward, not by chaos, but by rhythm. And whether the stars fade, or the galaxies stretch into silence, you remain, inside that story, a thread in the fabric, a note in the hum, a question made of light. Dark energy never introduced itself. It never shouted. It simply shaped everything, from behind the curtain. And now, as sleep rises like a tide beneath you, you understand. It was never a mistake. It was always a mystery. And mystery is what keeps the story moving. So let go now. Float on that stillness. Let your breath join the rhythm of an unfolding sky. And when you wake, the stars will still be drifting. The questions will still be here. And so will you. Gently curious, endlessly expanding, always enough. Good night.